Welcome everybody, my name is Sam Dando and today I want to do a little bit of an overview video to discuss this wonderful game in front of me called Imposter Kings. So thank you for joining me today. If you're watching this video, you might have just picked up a copy of Imposter Kings, you might have spoken to me at an event about it, you may have seen a video about it, or you could just be a brand new person who either loves MinMaxGames, loves Flesh and Blood, or just loves trading card games in general and has found your way to this video today. Well, if you have, I'm very happy to have you here. And my goal is to introduce to you a little bit of what this game is going to entail and what comes in the box when you're going to purchase it. Now, to me, this is one of the best games that's currently on the market. It's personally one of my favorite games of all time, and I've been playing games for about 2 decades now. Now, what makes this game so special is that although it is a card game, it is more in line with what I would describe as like chess-like games. So you have the same cards that you're going to be playing with every round. It's the same deck that will be shared and will be dealt out between both players. And then from there, you're going to have variance that happens, whether it's because there's certain cards that are out of the game for the turn, or they're just going to be different because every time you're going to deal out the deck, you're going to have different combinations of cards in your hand. So the game itself, when you pick it up, is going to come in this beautiful little box here. And within this box, you're going to have access to 2-player, 3-player, and 4-player. Each of these modes have slightly different in gameplay mechanics and have slightly different variations in the cards that are within the deck. But in this one box, it comes with everything that you would need to play each of those. So when you open it up, you're going to first find the instruction manual booklet, which you can see here, which is very good at explaining to you how to play the game, obviously the rules. And it also has a really nice FAQ in the back that will help you if you do have any ruling questions or anything that comes up while you're playing. I found this to be pretty detailed and pretty effective in terms of helping you get started. And then also, if you did have questions or hangups, it's very clear. But if there are anything that you are confused about, there is a Discord that you would be able to access by scanning the QR code on the back here. And that Discord will bring you to, you'll be able to speak with the creator of the game, you'll be able to speak with people like myself, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have as you continue to learn the game. Now, in addition to what's in the box, I already have the main 18 cards here pulled aside because I'm going to show you how to play the game. But in addition to that, you do get some extra cards, which I had mentioned earlier, so that you can add into the deck to play 3-player or 4-player mode. 3-player mode is a free-for-all mode, and then 4-player is a 2v2 team mode, which is my personal favorite way to play the game, and I think it's one of the most fun multiplayer games that you can have currently if you are a card game player and you like playing Magic and you like playing Commander, or if you play Flesh and Blood and you like UPF. Consider it kind of like that, but it has a lot of depth in strategy and just so many hilarious moments that occur between you and your teammate, and then of course with your opponents that you're sitting at the table with. In addition to that, there's these wonderful key cards here that if you are learning how to play the game, will have the rules, it'll have the setup instructions, and then it will also have an overview of all the cards that are in the game and then what their text is. So in the middle of the game, if you need to refer back to them, you're able to have these cards until you play the game enough, and then you can have everything memorized and you know exactly what everything does. But until that point, if you're learning the game, these are very valuable resources to have, and I'd highly encourage you keep them out when you're learning to play the game. Now, what is Imposter Kings? Imposter Kings is a deduction game at its core. So it's all about understanding what you have, finding out what your opponent has, and then finding the optimal line to play around those cards. Now, how do you do that? So I'm going to go ahead and just pull out the deck here. I already have it shuffled up, and I'm going to just go through what a basic hand looks like. We're not even going to worry about what the abilities do at this time. We're not going to worry about what the cards do. We're just going to show how the flow of a game would work. So as you see here, we first have our kings, and there's a true king, and then there is the imposter king. And the only difference here is the true king is going to be able to decide who goes first and who goes second when the round starts. These would be randomly shuffled and then distributed out to the players. Now, what is also nice to note here for the kings is they do have an ability. And this ability says, flip to disgrace the card on the throne, take your successor as your turn. Now, I'll show this when we go into the game, but this is a very important ability because if you do play other card games, I'm going to refer to some terms that you may know. This is the only true +1 in the game, meaning that when you activate this ability, you're going to gain a card to your hand, and whatever card is currently on the throne is going to get eliminated, which is a very powerful ability, and it's one of the main mechanics that I'd say the game is kind of hinged upon. So let's just say I'm the true king for the time being. You'd have your opponent, you're going to be face to face across the table, and then we're going to deal out the cards. So we're going to deal out everything until there are 2 cards left in the deck. And those 2 cards are going to get removed from the game. Now, this is what adds a little bit of variance so that every game doesn't quite play the same. One card is going to be face up, and the other is face down. Now, we both know that this card is out of the game, but there's going to be a mystery card that both me and my opponent do not know what that card is. So although we may have almost perfect information, there's always going to be this one card that we don't quite know exactly what it is, which can change your odds of how you're going to be playing around your opponent. Now, let's just play with our hands face up for the time being, because I'm not going to be super worried about here what the cards actually do, more so just how the game is going to function. So these are my cards, and those are my opponent's cards. As you can see, there's a beautiful assortment of colors as they are ranging from 1 to 9. And these colors all they are more so visual aids, just so you can get an understanding of how powerful or weak your hand is just based on number. So we'll describe the lower numbers as cool, and we describe the higher numbers as hot, just based on their color gradient. So when you first start the game, what the point of the game is going to be is you're going to be playing cards down a line here, which is the court. And you can only play a card that is of equal or higher value, which is, you can see in the top left corner, as the card that's currently on the throne. And the throne is the topmost card. So let's just say I start the game, I play this. This is a 5. Again, we're just going to ignore abilities at this time. So my opponent has to play a 5 or higher. They have the soldier. They're going to play the soldier on top, and it's going to go back to me. Let's say I play my 5 on top. They have to play a number, and so on and so forth, right? And then this is just going to keep going until you are unable to play another card on top of this. Now, one thing that just now that you have this information of how it's going to work, another part that happens at the beginning of the game is you're both going to look at your hands, and then based on the strategy that you want to employ, you're then going to take one card and you're going to have to discard it from being out of the game. Now, this can range vastly. This can be coming down to like mind games of not wanting your opponent to know exactly what's in your hand. Sometimes it's just getting rid of the weakest card in your hand. But this allows you to craft your hand in a way to sometimes play defensive and then also to create another layer of hidden information from your opponent. So again, just for sake of things, let's just say I'm going to throw this card out, and let's just say my opponent throws this card out of the game. Now, we can look at what these cards are. Our opponent cannot look at what they are. In addition, you're going to select a successor. Now, kind of just like any other kingdom or something like that, the king is going to need somebody to follow up his reign when he ultimately steps down from his role. Now, the storyline of this game is you're in the kingdom of Nersetti. There is an entire backstory lore for this game as well that's very well developed, and it's very good. But the loose interpretation of it is the king goes to a well, and he is able to look through multiple reflections of timelines. He's able to look at many fragments of what his life will look like, what it's going to be as he continues to reign as king. And he's trying to find the optimal timeline to continue the kingdom to go forth. And so every game that you play is experiencing another one of those potential timelines of who is going to end up becoming the next king or the next queen for the Nersetti throne. So with that in mind, you're going to pick a successor. Now, this card is going to go face down next to your king. Let's just say my opponent chooses this card. Now, these cards, again, you can see them. Your opponent cannot see them. What's important for this is that this card is not in your hand, so it is hidden information from your opponent. Now, this is important because there are cards in this game that allow you to scout or ask for what your opponent has in their hand so you can gain information, and then certain abilities are triggered that way. So there are going to be cards that you're going to want to have tucked or hidden away so that your opponent does not have access to them. There are a lot of strategies and a lot of independent, like individual strategies that come forward when it comes to successoring. But again, just for the time being, this is going to be outlining mechanics. So let's go back to what we had played before, right? So I played the 5. Let's say they play their 6. I play a 7. They play a 7. I play an 8. They play an 8. I play a 9. They play a 9. Now at this point, I don't have a card in my hand with the number that could get over this. So I'm going to have to activate my king ability. So what that looks like, it's my turn. I'd literally flip my king face down. So he is now passed. He is no longer currently on the throne. The card that is on the throne here is going to get flipped face down, and then this card goes to my hand. And then it goes back to my opponent. Now they have a free board to play on because any card that is disgraced, which is face down here, is no longer able to, it doesn't have a value or a card ability. So it is just a blank slate. So my opponent can play anything they want on it. I can play anything I want on it. They flip, they add this to their hand, this goes there. I play the 6. Now they don't have a card in their hand that is a higher or equal value to this, so I would win the game, right? So at this point, based purely on value, I would currently be winning the game. Now it is a point-based system, so you play to 7. If you win a round, you get 1 point. If you win the round and your opponent has cards in their hand, you get 2 points. And then if you do that and your king isn't flipped, you would get 3 points. Where the point system becomes interesting is there are going to be hands that you can't necessarily maybe win with, but you want to try to minimize the amount of points that your opponent can win. So it starts to become more of a long-term strategy rather than an individual one-time game where if you lose, it's just over. So now that you kind of have an idea of how the flow of the game works, now I need to start getting into like what the cards actually do. And this is where things get very complicated. So if you are new to the game, I'd highly recommend just familiarize yourself with the cards. And the best way to start getting better is just to play the game slowly with your friends. And as you have questions, you kind of stop, you can ask, and it will start to reveal to you as you continue to play what certain strategies are, how to interpret value of cards, and then also what are some reoccurring patterns that will start to emerge as you continue to play the game. Now, first and foremost, one thing I'd like to mention is that these cards are absolutely beautiful. I mean, the artwork on this is all hand done by an artist named Michael Hirschon, who's an extremely talented artist. He is a good friend of the creator of the game and has worked alongside of him closely to really make the identities of these characters come alive and have all of them be, 1, lore accurate, but 2, very unique in all of their personality, as you can see. So that is one thing that I really love about this game. Another cool thing about this is that when there are multiple copies of a card, they all have slight differences in how the art is portrayed. So in multiplayer games, this allows you to track individual cards a little bit better. So for example, here the Oathbound, I'm not sure if you can quite see it on camera, it's very subtle. This one has his eyes covered with his bandages and his ears exposed. This one has his eyes exposed and his ears are not, which are just a very slight difference in art. They also have different flavor text, which is just really cool. There's just the little things about this game that are just so like well done, or you can just tell were really well thought out, really bring out the genuine artistic direction of the game. And you can just see how much care was gone into every aspect of it, which is just really what made me fall in love with the game and what I think the charm of it really brings to a lot of other people who I've shown the game to and who have also fallen in love with it. So let's just get going with each of the cards individually. So starting with 1, this is the Fool. Now, it has the lowest number in the game, but it arguably has one of the most powerful abilities in the game. The Fool states, you may choose any other card from the court that is not disgraced and then put that chosen card into your hand. So as you saw when we were kind of building down the court, there was going to be cards that are face up, and then some get disgraced, which is again flipped face down. What the Fool says is that when he's played, you can take any of those cards that are in the court face up and you just add it to your hand. So this is what we would be calling a card neutral. So you're not losing value when you play it. You do gain a card in addition to be playing. So you get the trade-off of it's kind of a dead card in your hand until there are those critical moments in the game where you can access the toolbox of what's currently in the court, take another card, and a lot of times that can just be game winning. So the Fool is a very, very powerful card in this game, despite him only having a 1 in the top left corner. Now the Assassin is one of the cards that I think it is the card that a lot of the tension around this game is built upon. What the Assassin says, reaction. If any player flips their king, you may reveal this card from your hand to prevent their king's power and cause them to lose this round. So yes, you did hear that correct. This card literally says that if at any point in the game with my king, I want to try to flip it to gain my successor to my hand and my opponent has the Assassin, I just instantly lose the game. So as you can tell, that is like a huge part of the tension and where you want to know in terms of if you don't have the Assassin, you have to assume your opponent has the Assassin and then employ a strategy to play around it. There's a lot of skill and a lot of different play lines that could come up as you are both trying to play around the Assassin or your opponent who might have it, try to employ strategies to be able to assassinate your opponent. So, and that's just like, and you'd think, you know, as a new player, oh, the Assassin is broken, right? Every time somebody first plays the game, they think the Assassin is super overpowered. Obviously, whoever has the Assassin is going to be favored. but it's really not the case. Although it does have a built-in win condition, it can be a just dead card in your hand, being that it has such a small value and it doesn't have any other ability outside of the reaction power. And there are quite a few answers to combat the assassin, as you'll see as we keep working our way up the numbers. Now for 3, we have 2 Elder and then 1 Zealot. Now what the Elder says, it's immune to King's Hand, which we'll get to later. King's Hand is this 8 card. It says you may play this on any royalty. So despite it having a lower number as 3, it does have the utility of being able to be played over the most powerful card in the game, which are your 2 9s up here. So it can be a really good answer card. There are answer cards, and then there's proactive cards in this, and a lot of them can flip between those depending on game states. And I'll get into that probably in another video where I'm just going to talk about certain strategies or game theory. But for the time being, just know that this is an answer card, and its primary function is to just have an out to the royalty. Now the Zealot is the inverse of the Elder. It says if your king is flipped, you may play this card on any non-royalty card. So again, as we stated before, if your king, you activate its ability, it's flipped, the Zealot becomes basically like the reverse of the Elder. It can be played on anything except royalty. So this is a really good card to put as your successor, as we kind of mentioned earlier, because its power won't be online until you flip. So you'd want to flip, and then you get the Zealot to your hand, and now it's activated and it's online. Now in the community, we kind of clown on the Zealot. A lot of us think that it is not one of the best cards, or it's just kind of a mid-level card, as we'd say. But the more I play the game and the more utility I could see from the Zealot, it's honestly a really, really good switch-up card, because a lot of times your opponent might not be prepared for it. And the ability to be able to be playing a Zealot over a higher number card and not have to use one of your higher number resources can come up and be super, super relevant. So don't underestimate the Zealot. Now we get to the 4s, which we have the Inquisitor, which is another one of those pivotal cards in the game that I think is really integral to the game and how the flow and the tension of the game works. So it says you may say a card name. Other players with that card in their hand must play 1 to their antechamber. So what this means is that when I play my Inquisitor, let's just say my opponent has the Assassin, I would say, do you have the Assassin? And they would have to tell me, yes, I do have it in my hand. And the antechamber is going to be a zone that's right in front of your king. So if I have my king here, my antechamber would be right here. And all that means is that when it comes to my turn, this has to be played. It ignores whatever the cost condition is on the throne at the time, and it just comes into play. So if I have the Inquisitor and I call out a card, it forces it out of my opponent's hand, they have to play it, and then it comes back to my turn. It's kind of like a Uno skip card in a way, except rather than you just skipping your opponent entirely, you get to command what their next turn is going to be. So as you could tell, that's extremely powerful, but there can also be a lot of instances where your opponent will whiff, because what a common strategy is that if you have the Assassin and you know your opponent wants to get it out of your hand through Inquisitor, you commonly can just put it as your successor. Now it's hidden from your opponent. They would play their Inquisitor, say, do you have the Assassin? And you say, no, I don't have the Assassin in my hand, sorry. And then you flip your king and you add it to your hand, and then now they have to guess again, well, do they have the Assassin in their hand now, or are they bluffing me? So as you could tell, we're already starting to get a little bit into the weeds of the strategy or the certain lines that you can employ, and we haven't even gotten to 5 yet. So let's go to 5. 5 is what I would call your classic mid-range cards, clearly because they're right in the middle of being the number 5, but they also kind of employ utility of all the different mechanics in the game, just maybe at a lower power level. So the Soldier, for example, it says, say a card name. If any opponent has that card in their hand, this card would gain +2 value while it's on the throne, and then I can disgrace up to 3 cards in the court. So that's a lot of text, but basically it's similar to the Inquisitor. So I can play it. I say, do you have the Assassin? They say, yes, I have the Assassin. Now this becomes a 7, and then I can disgrace 3 cards in the court, which is basically like board control. So you can play around the Fool, so they no longer have cards, accessible cards for the Fool, or some of the other cards here that we'll get into that do interact with cards in the court. But it's a scouting card. It's a beater. It's just a bigger number. And then it also, like I said, can be board control. And then we have the Judge. The Judge says, guess a card name in your opponent's hand. If correct, you can put this card into your antechamber. You could put any card into your antechamber as long as it has a base of 2 or more. So the Judge allows you to preload your next turn. So it's kind of like the opposite of the Inquisitor. If you do call something correct, you could put something in your antechamber, and then when it comes to your turn, regardless of what your opponent has played, that card will come into the court. Again, and this helps because remember the antechamber ignores cost value. So a lot of times I could play the judge and say, do you have the assassin? They would say, yes, I do have the assassin. And then you can load your Inquisitor for the next turn, because then they're going to have to play over a 5. So they're going to have to waste a value of one of their cards. And then my Inquisitor would come in, and then I could pull the assassin out of their hand. So it's, again, another tricky utility card. The only reason why it's worded that way of 2 or more is because obviously it would be broken if you could preload the Fool. So specifically, it has been designed so that cannot happen. Next, we get to the 6s. These are the Oathbound. The Oathbound are also immune to King's Hand, and it says you may play this on a higher value card, disgrace that card, and then you must play another card of any value. That card is immune to King's Hand. So what this does is it allows you to play over a higher value card, even if you have lower numbered cards in your hand, and you can force them out. So let's just say they have a Warlord, and I have the Oathbound. I can play the Oathbound, which would disgrace this, and then I'd have to play another card, but then I could force in my Inquisitor and force my opponent to pull something out of their hand. Now, another very common strategy with the Oathbound that we have coined the term the OB sneak is where you play this and then you can play the Fool. So this is one of the easiest ways to force the Fool into the game to activate its ability to recur something back to your hand. I mean, you can even recur the Oathbound back to your hand, which is a very effective strategy, and it happens quite a few times in this game. Kind of like chess, there's like a number of combos in this game that have certain terminology coined to them, or certain phrases that we use to declare what they are. So like I said, the OB sneak is one. There's the battery, which is where you open the game with a judge and then load it in a soldier afterwards. It's just like a very aggressive beatdown kind of strategy. And again, I'll probably be making a series of videos on Imposter Kings, and I'll go over specific combos in a later video. So let's get to the 7s. 7s, we have Warlord, which is a 7. This is the beat stick of the game, which just means big number. It's just a kind of a beater card. If there are any other royalty in the court, this card will gain +1 value in your hand, and then an additional +1 value after being played. So basically, all that is stating is that if there is like a princess in the board, and let's just say they play an elder, I can then play this, and it becomes a 9. Now, the way it's phrased, like to be an 8 in your hand, it's only stated that way so you're not able to play it on royalty. Because if it's an 8 in your hand, it cannot be played on a 9. That's the only reason why a lot of new players will get confused by that. But just think of it, because that'd be kind of broken to play the Warlord on top of royalty. And then we have the Mystic, which is another very, very powerful answer card in the game. This card states, if there are any disgraced cards in the court, you may disgrace this card after playing it to choose a number between 1 and 8. Cards of that base value lose their card text and have a value of 3 after being played for this round. Might be a little wordy, but the general statement is, if there's a disgraced card in the court, I can play the Mystic, disgrace it, so you are going to kill the card itself, and then I can call a number. So let's just say I'm trying to play around the assassin in their hand. I'd say 2. Now the assassin loses its ability. It no longer can assassinate anybody, and then it will become a 3 when it's put into the court. So a lot of times there are strategies that your opponent will be hinging upon, like let's say I have royalty and they have elders and they want their elders to be able to combat my royalty. If I play Mystic at call 3, their elders no longer have their ability and cannot be played on royalty, and it can just obliterate somebody's entire game plan. So Mystic is an extremely powerful answer card. And I would say it's one of the pivotal cards in the entire game that you always have to kind of be thinking about if your opponent has it, and you don't want to open up the ability for them to use its power. So even sometimes as the soldier, right? If you have the Mystic, you might want to use the soldier to disgrace cards to activate the Mystic so you can use its ability. So those are just some examples of how you want to play around it, or certain ways that you could employ it yourself. So let's go to the 8s. Sentry, now you could start thinking these are somewhat reflections of the 1 and 2 cards in the game. So Sentry says you may disgrace this card after playing it to choose a card from the court that is not disgraced or royalty. Exchange a card from your hand with the chosen card. So it's kind of like the Fool. So when you play it, you can disgrace it, which means flip it face down, and then you could take any card that's in the court and replace it with another card from your hand. So it's not as good as the Fool, where it's just you play it and then get a card to your hand, but it still allows utility, and being that it's an 8, it has a little bit more flexibility because you can play it on over, you can play it over almost any card in the game and then have the ability to swap out with another one. Now, the King's Hand is the direct answer to the Assassin. It's the only other card in the game that has the reaction key text. And it says, when another player chooses to use a card's ability, play this card immediately after they choose their target to prevent that ability. Condemn both this card and the played card. So what that means is if I have the King's Hand and my opponent has the Assassin, if I flip my king and they try to assassinate me, I can just use the King's Hand ability to negate it and they both go out of the game. That's one of the clearest ways of how to use the King's Hand to combat one of the most dangerous lines in the game. But it also allows you a lot of control because a very common thing is your opponent would play the Inquisitor and try to pull the King's Hand out of your hand. You can then use its ability to either just negate the Inquisitor or you could just let them have it and they're going to have to play an 8 on top of it. But the King's Hand allows you a lot of control of what cards you want your opponents to be able to play and what cards you want to try to focus to negate. So unless the card specifically says immune to King's Hand, which we kind of stated some earlier, which is the 3s, the 6s, and I think that's it. I think, it's literally just the 3s and 6s that are immune to King's Hand. So you cannot King's Hand them or their abilities, and it's only a May ability that you can negate. That's one of the powers with the Oathbound. Now that you know that the King's Hand can negate stuff, the Oathbound gets around that. So anything that you bring in with the Oathbound is also immune to King's Hand, which is why it's really good to pair it with the Fool, because they cannot negate the value that you'll be gaining from the Fool with the King's Hand if it comes in with the Oathbound. And then we get to the Royalty. Royalty, obviously, are the biggest numbers. They're 9s, and they specifically have the keyword Royalty. Now, the Princess says you may pick a player, both of you choose and swap a card. So this will force your opponent to have to trade with you. This is really impactful in the endgame scenarios where you both are holding one card and you play the Princess and force them to trade and you give them a useless card and they know you know that they can't play it over the Princess and you score an easy two-point win at that point. But as you can tell, this is an extremely powerful ability. Being able to trade or forcibly swap with your opponent can always put them in precarious situations when you're playing a game that's all about value and also all about a certain strategy that you plan ahead to try to play around. And just taking one piece away from your opponent can be very detrimental. Now the Queen, pretty simple. It's the Queen. So when she enters the court, you disgrace all of their cards in the court, right? They all have to bow down to the Queen. So she just kind of is the ultimate board slayer, which is really powerful like when you're combating the Fool or when you're trying to turn online your Mystic or other abilities that you want to having interacting with the court. It's kind of like the Sentry and stuff like that. So these are the main cards that are in the 18 card standard deck. We are currently working on the expansion, which is pretty much almost done at this point, which is super exciting. And the expansion is far more complex and has far more cards and mechanics that get introduced. So before you move on to the expansion, just get a feel for the base cards here. Start getting the card text, the card names under your fingers, and start kind of learning the interactions and the strategies, because the amount of depth that comes from this game is pretty intense. If you've played anything like Love Letter, it's a lot of times comparable to that, except unlike Love Letter, which is very kind of easy and fun to pick up with people, this can be very complicated. But don't get discouraged. I wouldn't say, even though it might be hard when you first start playing, don't shy away, because you will start to be much more fluid as you continue to play the game. I think one of the biggest things that surprised me about this as I've been shopping it around and showing it to more people is there's been a lot of my friends who say, oh, I love playing this with my girlfriend or my wife or my kids or my parents even, which is just such a surprise to me, because when I first played it, I thought, wow, the really sweaty hardcore gamers are going to love this. I did not think, oh, my girlfriend would really enjoy playing this game. So that's quite a big surprise, and I'm very happy about that as well, to know that it kind of spans across a wide audience of people. So if you are interested in playing this game, you can go to the Imposter Kings website. There are currently a multitude of ways to play the game for free. So there is a PDF that you can print out to just get all the cards. There's an online client that you can use specifically to play the game, which works fantastic. It was designed specifically, the creator made it with a programmer and works very closely with him. So it is very well done. And then there is a mod for Tabletop Simulator if you want to just play it through Tabletop Simulator, which is the way that I played the most before we got the client. Other than that, the purpose of this game is really just for the passion. All the people who are involved in it love this game, probably like a little obsessive, I'd say. But we just really care and believe. The community is fantastic. Everyone who is a part of the game is fantastic. And the creator of the game is a wonderful person who is just really about trying to make a great experience and getting as many people to play it as possible. So when I first found this game, my goal was to try to help him in that process as well, because I believe in the game and I think that more people should be playing it as well. So please recommend it to a friend, share this video. If you are new to Imposter Kings and this is your first introduction to the game, again, welcome, we're happy to have you. Please join the Discord. And then also MinMaxGames is the exclusive distributor for the game at this time. So if you'd like to pick up a physical copy, please visit our website and we'd be more than happy to get it shipped to you right away. So in the meantime, if you do have additional questions, please put them down below. My name is Sam Dando. We plan on making a lot more of these videos. Please let us know what you're interested in, and I'd be happy to continue this process so that we can both learn more and grow as we experience this wonderful game. In the meantime, though, I love you guys. Peace. We'll talk to you soon.